Hi everybody, Matt back again with part 2 of the Eagles of Empire rules flick through and read through. So this is Drill Book 2, this is the Artillery, Cavalry and Heroes book, okay? And as I said last time, the majority of the rules for this are in Drill Book 1 for the artillery. So the moving, the shooting, the hand-to-hand are all in Drill Book 1. So this only kind of outlines a few basic rules that are specific to the cavalry and artillery. Okay. As always, some really nice pictures to begin with. A little bit of information about cavalry in the end of the 19th century. Noble and nearly obsolete, which is probably true. You know, we're talking 1870. Within another 40 years, cavalry will have disappeared from the battlefields. You know, they were on the way out at the end of the and the beginning of the First World War. And so, you know, they just couldn't keep up with the firepower that was being put out by the infantry at that point, and so they began to disappear. Okay, so how do we organise our cavalry in Age of Empires? So very similar to the infantry, where basically 6 cavalry figures are organised into a unit, okay, like a squad in the infantry, and these units are called a peloton in French rather, and a beret in German. A peloton, there you go, it's exactly the same as the cyclists that you see in the Tour de France. You know, a group of cyclists is called a peloton, a group of cavalry is called a peloton. So 6 riders make up a peloton or a beret, so a single unit. So you can add basically 2 groups of 6 together to make a squadron, and to that squadron you add a command unit. Okay, exactly the same as with infantry. When you've got 3 bases in a unit, then you've got 3 strength. When you've got 2 bases, you're down to 2 strength. When you're down to 1 base, you're down to 1 strength. And they suggest that you organise your riders, your cavalry, into a 3, a 2 and a 1, so that you can remove bases as you wish, as you slowly go down in strength. Okay. One point I need to make about the command base and the video I made last time, you might have been wondering, well, how do you activate doctrines and abilities? Well, you need a command base in order to activate doctrines. Okay, you need an officer to activate the doctrines for the specific nation or the specific unit. Okay, so as a single unit of 3 bases, you can't activate doctrines. You need a command base to do that. You need an officer to activate your doctrines. Okay, so that is how basically the cavalry is organised. Very similar, you know, almost identically to the infantry. So cavalry have got some special rules that goes with them. They've got the large target rule, okay, we'll go back to that in a bit, and they've got the charge by cavalry rule, which is large target means they're pretty much easier to hit by infantry, which is a bad thing. Okay, charge by cavalry means they get advantages when they actually charge infantry and artillery. Okay, and I'll come to those in a bit when we look at special rules. Okay, so cavalry units organised in the same way as infantry and the same amount of bases, but they've got some special rules that they can use in order to help them on the battlefield. Okay, which we'll come to in a bit. Next stage is artillery. Now artillery were gaining more and more prominence at the end of the 19th century, becoming much more powerful, and you'd also got these machine guns, the Holland machine, okay, machine from hell, basically kind of, you know, a forerunner of the heavy machine gun, okay, on the battlefield, and so artillery was in the ascendancy really at the end of the 19th century. Okay, the main Prussian gun was the Krupp gun, okay, and the French Lahat brass guns were basically no match for the Krupp gun. So really the Prussians had the advantage when it came to artillery, and a lot of the battles that they won because of their artillery. Okay, not because of their needle guns were superior. In fact, the Chazapot is probably a better weapon than the Dressler. Okay, so artillery, how are they organised? Well, a single base of artillery is simply one gun. Two bases of artillery becomes a battery and becomes much more deadly in use. So basically a single base of artillery only has one strength, yeah? So that makes it really vulnerable to attack by cavalry or by infantry, and that's as it should be, really, because a single gun with 4 men around it, if it's shot at by a squad of infantry, they're probably going to die pretty quickly and they won't be able to use the gun. So, you know, one strength means that they only have a single dice of defense value, all right, in order to try to avoid being hit. So if you shoot at them with 3 dice with full strength, and you hit with 2 dice, and you hit with all 3 dice, they're going to take 2 casualties from that gun, so they're going to be down to 2 men, okay, and they're probably not going to be able to fire the gun, so you're going to put the gun out of action. In a battery, however, they become a little bit more powerful. If you're in a 2-gun battery, you gain more power. So let's just take a look at the firepower stat. Okay, so the firepower stat there is for a single gun, 1d6. Okay, movement rate 2 inches. You can only move it 2 inches. The range of a Krupp gun is 60 inches, so huge range. So I think that, you know, the benefit and the usefulness of artillery is the range. Basically, you pound away with your artillery at long range, you know, trying to devastate the infantry until they can get close enough to shoot at you. 1d6 is for a single gun. If you put 2 guns together into a battery, okay, then they get 3d6. Okay, so a battery's firepower is much more powerful than a single gun, as you would expect. Okay, guns, okay, they don't hit on a high roll. They need a 6+. They're acting pretty much in the same way as, if you've ever played bolt action, they're acting like mortars and things like that, where, you know, you need a 6+ to hit. Okay, with a mortar you kind of zero in and you're able to hit at a lower range. I think there aren't any rules to do that in this, but I think I might, you know, house rule would be, I think if you hit once with a artillery piece and the unit that you're shooting at doesn't move, I think you should be able to shoot again at 5+ and then 4+. So it gets easier. Okay, but in this they're saying it's 6+. So what is the advantage of artillery? Well, the advantage of artillery is that even though you're hitting on a 6+, the unit that you hit cannot save, so they get no save. So if you hit, you're doing an automatic casualty. Okay, so you're killing a base for that squad. If you shoot with 3d6 and you hit with all 3d6, they don't get any saves, so you're going to kill 3 bases. 3 bases is an entire squad. So if you shoot a battery of artillery, you know, at a squad 54 inches away, and you hit it with 3d6, it's gone. You killed an entire squad. So that really is the advantage of the artillery, is that, you know, they've got huge range, and when they hit, they kill, basically. Okay, and so that's really what you're going to be trying to do. You're going to be trying to take out as many infantry units and probably cavalry units as you can with your artillery before they even get close to you. And to be honest, because this is an objective-based game and your opponent is trying to take the objectives and you are too, you could just pound the objective with your artillery until you can get your infantry close enough. That would be a reasonable tactic, I think, wouldn't it? Yeah. So, you know, your opponent is trying to get as close to the objective as you can. You're basically pounding the crap out of the objective with your artillery batteries, and you know, giving your infantry time to, you know, run across the battlefield to get there before they do. Okay, likewise they could do the same thing, or they can try and pound your infantry to try and stop them. So I think, I mean, this is, to me, this is the most interesting part of the game, the artillery. You know, so together with the infantry and the cavalry, the artillery are, you know, it really gives you that kind of range of dimensions, you know, that you need to kind of take advantage of those objectives. Okay, so similarly to Cavalry, artillery also have some special rules. Now these are special rules that you don't have to buy with command points. Okay, they simply get to use this. All right. So artillery basically get, as I've just said, they hit on a 6+. They also save on a 6+. So if they get shot at by an infantry unit, they've got a 6+ save, which is pretty hard to save because they're vulnerable to infantry shooting at them, of course. But once they hit, they can't save. They always cause casualties. If you're using machine guns, now the Prussians, they did have these kind of early kind of machine guns, the same as in the American Civil War, where they were just starting to use the chain guns and the Gatling guns. The Russians had something similar to that as well, and the early machine guns. They can hit on a 5+ and they save on a 6+, but the same kind of thing, they can't be saved as well. I haven't got the stats for those, alright, they're probably different, but basically they hit much more easily. There's no stats card attached to the rules or anything like that, so I'm assuming they probably got they're less dangerous, but they can hit far more easily. They also have a doctrine, okay, depending on the faction, so it could be the Prussians or the Bavarians or the French. They could have a doctrine which they can pay for, okay, with command points, which allows them to shoot artillery off the table, okay. So this thing, shooting from a long distance, okay. So they get the designated number of D6 shots on the doctrine card, okay, with a 6+ to hit, and all including causing casualties. Like the artillery batteries, doctrine artillery barrages can't be divided up, okay. Basically, this allows them to shoot off-board, activate off-board artillery barrages. Okay, so that's quite interesting as well. So what they're saying is, you could have your artillery in a town nearby, or or quite a distance away. So the artillery doesn't need to be on the board in order to use the doctrine artillery, the artillery doctrine. Okay, so the benefit of artillery then is that they've got a very long distance and they will pretty much kill whatever they hit. Okay, if they're organised into a battery. Okay, let's just take a quick look at the special rules then for cavalry and artillery. So the cavalry special rule, large unit, so when enemy units are firing at them, they gain additional D6 firepower. Remember that firepower is on the infantry cards, yeah. So for example, French line infantry's got 3d6 firepower. When they're shooting at cavalry they'll have 4d6 firepower. So cavalry are vulnerable to infantry, basically, okay, as you would expect. But if you charge infantry and artillery with cavalry, they have to take a morale test of 4+ on a d6, and if they fail the morale test, they lose 1 unit strength. Okay, so they'll be trampled and panic. Okay, and then the following close combat is then resolved. So they move into hand-to-hand combat. So that's the only time that there is a morale test in this game that I've found so far. Morale isn't a stat, okay, on any of these cards, but it's just a random roll as part of the cavalry charge. Okay, artillery special rules, already talked about this. Basically, artillery can't save. Okay, you can't save artillery. The machine gun gets save on a 6+. All right, but normal artillery can't be saved and always causes casualties. So you roll 3d6 to hit. You will kill three bases, so an entire squad. Okay. And there's the doctrine ability there at the bottom. Okay, so these are special rules. The bottom one, a doctrine, is something that you will have to pay for with command points. The others are rules that are automatically used. Okay. Unit special ability. Now these symbols are symbols which will be on the cards, which I don't have, on the cavalry and the artillery cards, which kind of indicate different abilities that artillery and cavalry can use. Okay, I don't have those cards, but some of the things they can do, Oh, they can defend on 6+ if you buy that. Lancers, they gain 1 extra attack in cavalry mode. Okay, marksman, if the unit didn't move, it gets firepower 2d6 rather than 1d6. That's interesting. Oh, cuirassiers, yeah, you can get cuirassiers. Prussians had cuirassiers. If they've got a cuirass, then they gain an extra 2d6 to defense in cavalry melee. Oh, that's good. So these are basically abilities that different cavalry and artillery units will have, and these abilities will be on their cards, okay, in the same way that you can see the 2 special abilities at the bottom of the infantry one. Allows them to move through woods and move through buildings. Okay, so it's the same kind of thing. Like I say, I don't have any cavalry or artillery yet, and so I don't have the cards for those. Okay, so that is cavalry and artillery. And the last thing in this book is heroes. Okay, now Franco-Prussian War is full of heroes, lots of generals and majors. Okay, running around. Okay, here we've got a French hero, Colonel Suzoni. Okay, and there's a nice little figure of him. So heroes basically allow you to use certain abilities within the game. So basically what they do is they will add abilities to a particular unit, but they can only be used with a single unit. Okay, so if you attach a hero to a unit, so I've got one hero I've got so far is General von Bredow. Okay, he's got the ability Death Ride. Okay, so he charged against the French artillery at Mars-la-Tour. So as long as von Bredow is on the table, all Prussian cuirassier Berets will have an extra defense dice. So you've got to attach him to your Prussian cuirassiers, okay, to a squadron of cuirassiers, and they will get an extra defense dice while he's with them. Okay, so basically these hero cards are, they've got they're basically an ability that's added to a unit. Okay. And you do get the figures with him. There's the General von Bredow figure, okay, and here he actually is in the flesh. So I haven't painted him up yet, but you know, that's my General von Bredow figure. Yeah. So if I actually get some cuirassiers, which maybe I should do now I've got the hero, okay, I'll add him to the cuirassier unit, giving them an extra 1 defense dice. Okay, so for example, if they're in a squadron of and they're in a group of 3, they've still got 3 bases left, then they basically will have 4 defense dice instead of 3. That's pretty good. Okay, so that I think is basically it. I'll actually use him as an example there. Okay, so that's the way in which you use heroes. You add them to your units, whether it's your infantry units or your artillery units or your cavalry units. Okay. Just one last thing about objectives and about doctrines as well. The doctrines are basically dependent upon the nationality, okay, and last video I talked about spending points on doctrines, yeah, okay, on abilities, and these are the doctrines here for the French. Okay, hold the line, French Elan, and Denier Cartouche. Okay, Denier Cartouche, can't speak French, but Denier Cartouche. So you can see this is what you spend your command points on, yeah, okay, 1 CP to hold the line. Choose a unit in command. This unit will roll 1 extra defense dice per squad, yeah, for the entire round. 2 CP, French Elan, a unit in your line that just repelled a charge may now counter charge, and 2 CP plus an ammo point. Okay, choose a unit in command. This unit may perform an additional fire action this turn with plus 1d6 per squad. That's pretty good. So basically they can shoot twice with an extra 1d6 per squad. So this is why you use your CP, yeah, and you maybe want to buy some ammo, because you can do things like that. Okay, and here as well are the can't quite see this, but the Prussian doctrines, yeah. Okay, Prussian tactics for 1 CP. Vereinigung Deutschland, okay, for 2 CP, and 2 CP and an ammo point, okay, for the third one. I can't pronounce that at all. It's an artillery one, yeah. Choose an enemy squad in line of sight from a German officer. It now suffers 6d6 artillery hit. My God, that will just wipe out an entire squad, because you've only got a hit with 3 of those, and they can't save, and so they will die. If one of your officers can see that enemy squad, my God, that's powerful. So, you know, your command points and your ammo points are really, really important. And like I say, you can buy ammo points with your command points. Okay, so basically what I was saying last time on the video before was, you might be tempted to spend all your command points on victory points, but you might not ever get into a situation where you actually get enough victory points to win, because your opponent, if he's spending his points on those doctrines and he's blowing you away every turn before you can bring on reinforcements, and he's bringing on reinforcements as well, and he's playing the long game, he will probably beat you. Until I actually play this game, I'm not going to know how powerful those doctrines are, but they seem pretty good to me. I mean, 66 artillery hit on a unit which only has 3 strength anyway, and if it takes 3 casualties, it's dead, which is the same for most units, including cavalry units, with no saves from artillery. That is going to destroy a unit quite simply if you roll 3 of those 66 to hit. Okay, so the rules are pretty interesting then. They're more interesting than I would have thought. And really what you've got to do, I think you've got to make sure that you've got a mixture of cavalry and artillery and infantry. So it's a real kind of a combined arms game, yeah. And I didn't want to go down the rabbit hole of another period, but I've got this funny feeling that I'm going to have to purchase some cavalry and some artillery, because yeah, it just looks really, really good. And it's a very simple system, okay, and I know there are people out there who prefer more complex systems, but I'm pretty sure that, you know, we're all clever enough to add our own house rules, aren't we, and add a few more doctrines of our own and that kind of thing. And I think it's a game that, the good thing about simple systems is they're easy to change and they're easy to add to without changing the game, yeah. Okay, and that's one of the good things. If you've got a bare bones of something, then it's very easy to kind of make it more complex. Complex systems are harder to play with than house rule, okay, generally. Okay, so I'm going to leave it there, and I hope you've enjoyed this look through the rules for infantry, cavalry and artillery for Eagles of Empire. And yeah, looks pretty good, doesn't it? Looks quite interesting. Okay, so see you soon, take care, stay safe, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye.